Hey guys, final video in this series. I reached level 100, so this will be the last one. My stats are pretty much the same thing. That's 69. I died twice more, once in the labyrinth, and I tried an Uber Ziri and tried tanking some stuff I shouldn't have, so otherwise this character was really tanky. In this video I'll kind of talk about the passive tree options and um, what you should be expecting with those. So look at my crit strikes is 57 in hideout, 57.87. So there's some things you can do to play around with on the passive tree. For example, you can drop some of this stuff. You can drop like as much crit as you want. The thing is though, my critical will shoot up to like 87 or 89, and with diamond that puts it very close to 99. And my discharge, it has 50 and it gets about 75 with full charges, something around that. So if I start dropping crit, it starts going to like maybe 68 or so, which comes out to be very a big difference, because if you start going from like 75 with like 6% chance to not crit, and you start going like even worse, like 35 or 33, it starts becoming 10%. So you can drop it if you want, but the critical for your spell and for Cyclone, it turns out these 3 points I think are worth it. So let me just demonstrate that right now. If I were to respec out of these, my criticals, let me just show these three first. You can spec out these three nodes. You can play around with everything on your tree. I would not recommend to do this unless you know exactly what you're doing. The critical nodes to hit are basically the ES nodes, the area nodes, and these ES nodes over here. And then try to get charges if you can with the belt and stuff like that. But the rest of the stuff you can actually spec out quite a bit, and vault pack is mandatory. So without the dagger nodes, I have 78.78. So 1 minus that squared gives me a 4% chance to not crit, whereas before I would have 99% chance to crit. So the difference is, if you spec out of all the crit nodes, you're going to feel like you're not guaranteed the critical. Like what I showed you in the last video, you could actually guarantee the critical and just zoom away the moment you crit. With 4%, it's like not as likely, but it's still like, you know, reasonable to do that. So just keep that in mind. If you don't like the dagger crit nodes, you can take off 4 and spec into other stuff. It's fine. Those points are worth it. Well, they're 90 for 4 points, so you can decide if that's worth the whatever 3% critical that you care enough to spec into them. And then you can also spec out of these. The thing is, these things affect global critical, so it affects both the dagger and the discharge. So my dagger critical goes to 41, and 71, 31, and this is 70. So 8% chance to not crit on both my Cyclone and my Discharge. And that's getting to the point where I feel like it's a little bit too much. Like 8% chance to not critical on either one of those would make it, it slows down your mapping a little bit. So let me show you what I mean. If I were to run a precinct, you'll notice like it's slightly more annoying to crit, but it's still okay though. You can run it and have no issues because you get 7 free points or whatever many points you get. Maybe I shouldn't do it in Feeble Monster Life, it makes it even worse. Let me do like a map that is just a regular map. But yeah, you can play around with your tree a little bit like that. You can also spec out of a lot of ES nodes, or if you're hardcore, I would recommend speccing into the lightning resistance node. And yeah, if you're doing Uber at 0, you need as much max res as you can get. So that's that. The crit is like kind of important though, so You see, like that kind of stuff when I don't crit the discharge. I mean, that's the beginning of the map, so I don't have power charges. So you can not really worry about that as often. But as you can see here, it's still okay. You know, it's still playable. Is it worth 7 points? I don't know. But that's up to you to decide. I think it's like alright if you spec into the crit, but you definitely can spec out of it if you feel like the diamond is just carrying you hard enough. Like most maps, you'll be totally fine on it, and maybe you just want to spec into like pure damage. See, my discharge drops 39k instead of 42. It's not that big of a deal, and it's going to be much less because my diamond maxes out the crit chance. So what I dropped was like a whole bunch of crit chance, and that's like insignificant when I have my diamond up. The tooltip, keep in mind, is like not considering diamond flask at all. So if you don't consider diamond flask at all, then the tooltip will be much lower than if you were to use diamond flask because of the way multi works with it. So when I spec'd out of a lot of crit, my tooltip dropped quite a bit, but in reality it didn't really drop that much. But yeah, you can now spec it off as many crit nodes as you feel necessary. I was even thinking of spec'ing out Doomcast, but that thing gives a decent amount of multi, so I think you definitely should keep Doomcast one. It's a lot of damage for 4 points. The rest of them though, like, feel free to spec out of them at your leisure. Yeah, I would say it's not a mistake to. If you feel like you don't really notice a difference or it's just whatever to you, then feel free to spec out of them. For me though, like I really need that like 100% crit. I have a fixation on that stuff. I want the guaranteed critical, you know. But yeah, most of the time nobody really cares about that. They just hold down the button and it's not a big deal. And even like 6% critical is not an issue for like mapping. As you can see, I'm doing these maps just fine. It's not a big deal. Just spec out of the nodes and spec into elsewhere. Use 7 points is a lot of points that you can spec into. Now let me show you the other options you can do. You have multi here, which is 52 for 4 points. So you're getting 13% multi per point. Right here. Oh wait, no, it's 54. So you're getting 54 divided by 3. So it's slightly above 13. Then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 45 multi, 7 attack speed here. This is probably worth just as much as the other one. So you have those two damage options. You also have, you know, spell damage over here, strength and int, and spell damage over here. I don't recommend going in the witch unless you spec into annihilation, but even then it's kind of like meh. I wouldn't do it. In the past, you would spec into assassin mark and without the diamond, and you would try to use blasphemy assassin mark to reach max crit cap. So it's really important to pick up all the crit nodes. But now with diamonds, you can just drop as much as you want. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, you really need to hit Volpack, so make sure you get that. That's the important node. And the ES nodes are important, like I said. Now, those are your offensive options. I should show you the multi here, and the spell damage here. And the defensive options, if you're like hardcore, I recommend you like go into here for the max res. That's very good, and spec into a whole bunch of ES. You can also spec into these shield nodes. I don't recommend this because your base ES is so high that it's not going to be as efficient. This just multiplies your shield by 40, so I would get 514 times 40 times my 15% more. Nothing increased affects this node, only the more modifier and the shield. And that's pretty much it. Overall, this character was like super fun to play. I do this character like every league because it's a really stable, nice character, and yeah, it was a good, enjoyable experience. Like very expensive, but I think it was. I would do it again. That's all I have to say. Next time I'll be doing build videos for low life spectral throw. This character's finished, so you won't be seeing any more of that. And yeah, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this series. Peace out.